All right, full house tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause. Oh, this is great. This is great. And I'm really excited that this room is full today and that I don't have any more chairs available. One, two. Yeah, we got a couple more people planning to come yet, so they'll probably fill up. And if not, that's great. A couple of you get elbow room. The rest of you get to love each other, right? So, yeah, for those of you that are new, I am Dr. Jake Tucker. I'm the owner of the clinic. We've been here for almost 6 years now. Can you guys believe that? Some of you have been here with me the whole time, and some of you are a little newer, and some of you are in between. If you've been to 10 or more workshops, go ahead and raise your hand. All right, give you guys a round of applause. Anybody? This is 5 or more? It should be more of the room, right? Anybody very first time? All right, good job, guys. Well, you know, we are lifelong learners. That's what makes up this room. And that's what's going to make the difference. Hosea says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And so I am not going to leave you with the lack of knowledge. If you guys are going to do me the honor of showing up, I'm going to do you the honor of leaving you with something new. The problem is when it comes to heart disease, that what we're taught, what we're trained, our culture is that your body's fighting against you, that your heart is destined to fail. And statistically, if you do everything the exact same way that everybody else is doing it, I don't see why you wouldn't believe that. Because right now in the United States of America, over 1/4 of us are going to die of heart disease. It's the #1 cause of death. When you look at the epidemic that is cardiovascular disease, it makes COVID deaths seem like just a pale shadow of what could have been. It's really devastating what happens on a daily basis with heart disease. And what's most devastating about it is that this is a disease that's 95% lifestyle preventable. Let me say that again. What's devastating about all the deaths that happen from cardiovascular disease is it is a disease that is 95% lifestyle preventable. And if you guys can focus on that, that is going to save a whole lot of people, a whole lot of stuff. Because let's just raise our hands again. Everybody put your hands in the air. Put your hand down if you've never met anyone who's taken a blood pressure medication. Never met anyone that's taken blood pressure medication. Put it back up. Someone has taken a blood pressure medication. All right, hands back up. Put your hands down if you've never met anyone that's taken a statin, something to lower their cholesterol. That's pretty much everybody. And that's what we turn to as a society, are these meds. And what the meds are designed to do is address symptoms of a poorly functioning symptom. And that symptom's cardiovascular disease. And a lot of things that account for cardiovascular disease, but you just look at the raw data, 900,000+ people died of cardiovascular disease of some sort in 2020. Now, according to the media, what would they say is the #1 cause of death in 2020? COVID. Guess how many deaths? In 2020. Yeah. 330,000. And I know because I looked at the numbers, in 2020, it didn't matter if you had a heart attack and died in the hospital with them doing CPR on your chest. If you tested positive or had any signs or symptoms of COVID, you were a COVID death.
And you know why?
Yeah. So we're going to do something different. Our purpose here is to press buttons. Press buttons that work. Is to be the standard for natural health care, where everyone is empowered to live to their full potential. What is full potential? It's 100% function. Mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, spiritually. That's according to the World Health Organization. But unfortunately, our whole system is designed at what again? Your symptoms. And maybe not the first one, Maybe not 20. There's 3 chairs over here. Yeah, there's a nice comfy one. Yeah, keep coming on around. We're packed tonight. Make yourself as comfortable as possible, and if you can't do it, the person next to you can. So here's what we have to understand: is our body is fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you don't believe that, think about how you were created. Mom and dad, no matter how much they loved you, they came together and they each donated some genetic material, sperm and an egg. And that genetic material came together all on its own without any help. It duplicated. And then it did it again. And then it did it again. We start off with 2 cells, formed a single cell, and that duplicated and replicated and differentiated itself into 72 trillion cells that are this living, loving, thinking clay, all without any medication or surgery. Can you believe it? Right? And then you grew up. And the first thing that they did when you came out of mama's womb is you said, you're not perfect anymore. You're missing some vitamin K. You're missing a Hep B vaccine because God knows those babies are running out to the back alley and shooting up and having illicit you know what. All right, that's what you get on your first day. That's what you get on your, yeah, there's more chairs. Don't feel like you can't take one. And so we got to come to this mindset, understanding that the system that is doesn't think that you're enough. When God created us miraculously, I mean, you think Methuselah had to take blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication? You think Noah had some of that stuff on the ark? You know, you think he had a blood pressure cuff constantly monitoring what his heart was doing? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And they did some things differently back then. The world has changed. I don't see anybody living to 950 years of age. And you can say this for sure. The medical interventions that we've developed in the last 100 years have taken a high of where we were at in the 1960s and brought it back down somewhat as far as cardiovascular deaths. But that's 100% accounted for in just emergency procedures. We have the best survival rate for heart attacks in the world. And it's because we have the best doctors and best medical facilities that will save you in a crisis. But what do they do when you're done with your crisis? Yeah, they give you pills, and do they tell you what to do as far as getting yourself healthy again? No, their assumption is that you can't. The assumption is that you can't, and that's absolutely wrong. If you're taking breaths, if you're having thought process, your body is regrowing and rehealing every single second of the day. You replace yourself, every single cell, tissue, and organ in your body, every 15 years is replaced brand new. Every 15 years, you're brand new. And the only thing that determines whether that's healthy or not is your input. It's 100% your control. And it's these 5 categories here. But yeah, the number 1 cause of death in the United States is heart disease. And that's been true for the last century plus. It's been going down slightly, but it's really leveled off in the last several years. And it's sticking around that 600,000 to 900,000 mark, depending on whether you're counting strokes in there. So we have to start doing something differently. But what changed in the last 100 years? Everything, right? Everything changed in the last 100 years. You nailed it on the head. Smoking was 1960s. Anybody watch Mad Men at all? Like saw an episode and then like, But what were they doing the whole time? Smoking the whole time. And that's one of the big things that has made a big difference is the intervention in smoking. But what have we replaced smoking with? Well, even people that didn't get away from smoking completely are smoking something else. We're vaping, right? And we want to legalize marijuana, and that's ingesting it into the lungs. And so things might be getting better in emergencies and crises. But the incidence of heart disease has actually gone up, even though the deaths have started going down since the 60s. It's estimated that by 2030, 40% of Americans will have diagnosably in their body heart disease. So the future isn't bright. And guess where we're seeing the biggest increase in this? In our kids. coronary arteries are being plaqued. We're seeing more and more. By the age of 20, we can see occlusion, like significant occlusion of the widowmaker, that big artery on the front of the heart. And so we can't just be doing this for us, right? We got to do this for ourselves, our kids, and our grandkids. Because if we don't change the culture now, if we don't teach people around us how to be healthy, it's just going to keep going down the tube. And so it starts with knowing, right? Knowledge is power. And so what we've got in our society right now is this label of, cholesterol, right? And for a long time, we just said cholesterol is bad because when you cut open an artery of someone that's just had a heart attack, it's completely clogged with cholesterol. So, basic deduction, cholesterol must be the cause of the heart attack. Well, now we do more research and we find out, oh, nope, not all cholesterol is bad. We actually find out there's good cholesterol. You'll find out why it's in quotes in just a second. But the job of HDL cholesterol is to regulate LDL cholesterol storage in the bloodstream and promote its excretion. Okay? Then you've got LDL cholesterol labeled as bad. LDL cholesterol's job is to go to areas of damage and to cover it up, to plaque it up, right? And so if you scrape your arm and you were to measure the scab, what is it made of? It's mostly cholesterol. If you go into your blood vessels and you were to take a look at why that's under there, if you were to just rip that off and take a look at the lining of your arteries where it's all plaqued up, guess what you're going to find? Inflammation damage. And so LDL cholesterol isn't bad. It is what blocks the arteries, but it's the inflammation and then the oxidation of the cholesterol that actually leads to the heart attack. And so where does inflammation come from? Are you born with it? Is it a ticking time bomb? No, it's lifestyle, right? And so reasons for high LDL cholesterol. This looks like a good lunch, right? Occasionally, yeah, right? Mama said, all things in moderation? Let's adjust that a little bit. All good things in moderation. All good things in moderation. And so where do we start with that? Where do we start with that? Well, we have to understand where LDL cholesterol comes from. It's really inflammation. So number one isn't actually going to be most of the stuff in here. It's going to be sugars, right? I could go to the back and I could pull out those big bags of sugar. And how many pounds would the average one of us consume in a year? Hopefully this room it's way less. But the average is 350 pounds of sugar a year. That's for soda drinkers. If you're not drinking soda, guess what? You just saved yourself about 100 pounds. So 250 pounds of sugar a year. And how much should we be consuming in a year? About 30. About 30. It's crazy how badly we get this wrong. Now, there's other things as well, right? And so we went through this last month in our Nutrition 101. We talked about the fats that we're consuming. We're going to get into fats a little bit in here. We talked about the proteins and the sourcing of those proteins that we're getting. And we talked about the toxicity and we talked about food sensitivities. When you get on the wrong side of all those things are known causes of inflammation. And when you have known causes of inflammation and you don't address them, what's going to build up? That LDL cholesterol. It's going to plaque the arteries. It's going to plaque wherever it needs to. If that's in your liver, guess what's going to show up there? LDL cholesterol. If it's in your kidneys, guess what's going to show up there? LDL cholesterol. If it's on your arm, you're going to get a scab, and it's LDL cholesterol. That's its job. The cholesterol is not bad, and your liver is not bad for creating that cholesterol. But our answer to cholesterol isn't to address the inflammation. It's to say, bad liver, stop producing it. That's the answer. When you measure high, and look at this. One of my friends, one of my mentors, had a bug in his system that created an autoimmune condition. Anybody hear of Lyme? Lyme disease? Yeah. And so guess what his cholesterol did? It went way high. It was over 500. Now, if he had gone to a medical doctor, if he hadn't known any better and gone to a medical doctor, what would they have done before he left the hospital? Yeah, they'd put him on a statin. Get that cholesterol down. But if he had done that, is there any chance they would have healed from the damage from the Lyme? No, because it's blocking the healing mechanism. And that's what we're seeing a lot of, especially as we age, especially for people that get diagnosed with high blood pressure, high cholesterol early, is some of these meds that we end up taking long term, they're only meant to be there for a crisis, right? You got somebody on the table having a heart attack and they need a statin in that moment, they need a lisinopril, they need all those different medications to save your life in that instant. It's not designed for long-term health at all. So if you keep taking this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, guess what you get to do in the nursing home? And it's sad. I know you guys are laughing. My great-grandma died with dementia. I couldn't even see her the last 2 years in the nursing home because she couldn't remember me. She couldn't differentiate me from my uncles. It was just so sad.
I go to Dr. Linderman, and I just swear by him, did good care of me. But he took me off a statin because it affected my liver and kidney.
Yeah.
And I just can't take anything with statin.
No. And so many people don't realize how sensitive they are to it. They'll get on it and they'll get things like restless leg syndrome. Their legs will just start bouncing all the time, and it'll start affecting their brain and their memory, and they won't realize it because the doctors don't talk about the side effects of it, or we're not trained by the doctors to be able to address those side effects. And so that's one of those things as patients here, I want to equip you to do is to recognize these things that are known side effects of some of these medications. And so for many of you, actually for all of you, when you brought in that medication list on your first visit, I went to drugs.com and I went to interactions checker. Because just because it's on the list of side effects doesn't mean it's on the list of side effects when you take multiple different medications when they interact with one another. And we looked for major or moderate interactions between those medications. And then if I saw some, I handed you that sheet of paper with the list of what they were and how to address that. Now, if we haven't done that in a while and you've gotten new medications, guess what we need to do? We need to go look at that. And you can do that on your own. This is something you don't need me for. It's pretty straightforward. Just go to drugs.com, look at the interactions checker, and if there's anything major or moderate on that interactions list, you need to be talking to your pharmacist because your medical doctor forgot to check when they prescribed it for you. Start with the pharmacist because the pharmacist can intervene in a crisis. No, the pharmacist is trained in pharmaceuticals. Medical doctors do get some training in pharmaceuticals, but there's so many. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, but like, it is crazy. You teach a lot of this stuff. Yeah, pharmacology. But yeah, but honestly, when it comes down to it, the pharmacist is there to help intervene in those crises. Right.
The pharmacist knows what the drugs do.
Yeah.
Most of the doctors use their standard, say 15 or 20 drugs.
Yeah. Depending on what their specialty is or which age group they end up seeing. Yeah.
You talked to me about interactions because of my kidney problems that were getting pretty dire. And then you told me to double check with the pharmacist. You probably saved my life.
Yeah.
I have not had, I had 3 emergency surgeries last year for kidney stones. After I talked to you about it, you told me that? No.
That's awesome. Thank God for that. Yeah. And two, like, guys, it's not just because we don't just have one doctor prescribing us 10 different medications. We have 5 different doctors prescribing us 2 each or 3 and then 1. And so they don't always communicate. Like it might go in the health record.
They
rarely communicate. And I can vouch for that. Oftentimes you guys ask me to, and then we end up playing phone tag for a couple of months trying to get that to happen. So yes, you can trust your doctor. I'm not saying these are bad people. We take the Hippocratic oath, but sometimes we would just get overwhelmed with everything. Yes, sir.
I was in the hospital back in 2006. My giant nurses and the doctor was going to give me some kind of medicine. My wife said, "No, he doesn't take it." So they called up my pharmacist and said, "Oh, don't you give him none of that."
Yeah.
He said, "This is what he's taking. This is what he's supposed to take." That's it.
Yeah.
I do trust my pharmacist more than I do my doctors.
Yeah. Well, it's not the trust, it's just what are you trusting them with, right? I don't want you relying on me for your drug information. I had this many pharmacology classes, right? So don't say, Dr. Jake, do these interact? I'm going to the internet. I'm going to Dr. Google, just like you will. So yeah, Dr. Google, he's fantastic. If you haven't heard of him yet. But yeah, I do actually recommend Pharmacy Solutions over here. They have some fantastic pharmacists on staff, and they make their own medication in-house. So they know exactly what's going into that because they have to put it together. It's a compound pharmacy. It's a little bit more expensive, but you get what you pay for.
Unfortunately, I've worked around doctors and drug reps. Unfortunately, doctors listen to drug reps too much.
Yeah.
The latest stuff on the market is what's going to get this person fixed. Sometimes they have to kick back to the doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's the system that we live in. It's one of two systems in the world that allows commercials on television, on public television, to the public for medications. And it's part of the reason that the system's broken is it's a profit-driven system, and we're allowed to go directly to the public with a lot of that marketing. So, all right. So we covered the LDL cholesterol. Let's cover blood pressure. So what causes high blood pressure? Stress. Yeah, stress does. A lot of the same stuff that causes high cholesterol causes stress. But really, when you're looking at it, you're looking at two things. One would be need, right? If I'm in a foot race with a tiger for my life, I want my blood pressure as high as possible, right? I don't care if I keel over dead in the process because it's either I make it or the tiger gets me, right? So there's need, right? And you can see this with athletes. When they're running up and down the court or skating up and down the ice or running up and down the field, their blood pressure is higher than the normal limits. The other component of this is elasticity of the blood vessels. And guess what's going to impact that? Inflammation. And all those things that we covered there. So if you've got long-term inflammation in the blood vessels, they become more stiff, more brittle, they don't move as much. That plaquing starts to build up, that makes it less elastic, and guess what goes up is that blood pressure, right? And so if we never address the inflammation, if we never address that at the root cause, then it doesn't matter how much lisinopril you take. So we have to address that at its root cause. So what is the solution? Well, that's where the 5 essentials come in. So what are the 5 essentials? These are the categories of things that you need to be addressing in order to get these things down. They're essential because if you skip a category, you are going to see a decrease in function overall. And what's the big deal with function? Well, function's health. If you don't have function in a particular area, you're not healthy, no matter how you feel. And I say that with 100% confidence because you can feel fine and lose 39.9% function and not know it. What's the number one first symptom that 63% of people have of heart disease? Heart attack. How many people feel that beforehand? They don't. They just have the heart attack. And they feel the heart attack, but that's the moment when their heart function gives way. And so we have to stay ahead of this. How do we stay ahead of it? Well, number one, mindset. You have to know, right? You have to know that we're addressing function. You also have to know the way to address this properly. And then stress matters, sleep matters. I put those in this category. Number two, right at its core, is the nervous system. And I say chiropractic because chiropractic and the nervous system are really the same thing. Nervous system controls all function in your body. For your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, the cut on your leg to heal, signal has to run from the brain down the spinal cord and out those nerves to every organ, cell, and tissue. And we have tons of chiropractic research on how the heart is affected by the nervous system and how the heart is affected by adjustments, and positively. 3, that's going to be your nutrition. What you eat matters. And in fact, you are what you eat, and you are what you ate. And so if what you ate was bad and what you ate bad, guess what? You weren't so good. And so we got to replenish ourselves. And if you're going to replace yourselves every 15 years at a cellular level, you better be putting some good building blocks in there. Because otherwise it's going to turn into some pretty nasty stuff. Next is fitness. I know this is either the best one or the worst one for most of us. And it usually goes inversely. Diet, exercise, one or the other. People either love their diet or they love their exercise. Seldom do we see both. And I find myself more on the nutrition side. I really enjoy eating well. And so I will take time to make good food taste even better. But on the fitness side, it's like, let's mow the grass. That needs to be done. Let's throw the kids in the air. They need that. Yeah, and it's good. Like, that's still exercise. But is it the right type of exercise? Is it what we should be doing? Is it good for the heart? Yes, it's good for the heart, but is it good enough for the heart? Is it what our bodies require? And the last one is toxicity. And if you read Dr. Jack Wolfson, he's the paleocardiologist, probably the world's leading expert in cardiology from a holistic frame. He talks about toxicity at the root of heart disease, especially modern heart disease. That the pesticides, the things that we're covering our faces with, that the things that we're cooking our foods in, that these things are actually leading to heart disease. So let's jump into nutrition real quick here. Number one, right? We have to look at those 5 categories. Curb your carbs, fix your fats, perfect your proteins, trash your toxins, avoid your allergens. If you're doing 4 of those 5 things, you're building inflammation. If you're doing all 5 of those things, you're going to lower your inflammation. And in doing so, we'll see a measurable increase, a measurable improvement in your blood pressure, measurable improvement in your cholesterol levels. It might go the opposite way in the short term, because blood pressure and cholesterol do need to adapt to the stresses of your environment. And if you get an infection or something, you'll see those things go up. So those are the 5 categories of things that we define as generally our advanced plan. The advanced plan is a healing diet. The advanced plan is a hormone balancing diet. If you want to correct diabetes, if you want to correct heart disease, you go for the advanced plan. And where do you find the details on the advanced plan? The nutrition plans book. The nutrition plans book. You can find some resources on Google. Yeah, my website in particular has some good articles on the advanced plan, also some healthy recipes. But yeah, go to your nutrition plans book for that. So then we have to look at, one of these big things that's gotten out here in the last 50 years really is this low fat trend. And then in the last 10 years, low carb, which is right. Which one's better for you? Well, it depends where you're at. You have to recognize that when the low-fat craze started, what they did is they took fat out of the foods because they blamed fat for clogging the arteries, and they replaced it with sugar, right? And so instead of having low-fat, heart-healthy food, we had low-fat, inflammation-creating food. And so just eating something that's low-fat isn't going to make your heart any healthier. It's not going to lower your blood pressure, not going to lower your cholesterol on its own. On the other hand, low carb is not perfect either, is it? Now, for a lot of us, we're consuming a lot of excess carbohydrates. And we can make some really big improvements by reducing the carbohydrates. But really, it's not about the amount of fat or the amount of carbohydrate, it's the quality of the fat and the quality of the carbohydrate. And so if you're eating fats that are inflammatory, you're going to get inflamed. So what kind of fat do we want? Olive oil is a great one. Avocado oil. Did I hear coconut? Yeah, absolutely. And really it comes down to unprocessed in its whole state. If you eat an avocado, that's way better for you than the avocado oil. If you drizzle avocado oil on cooked vegetables, that's way better than if you cook the vegetables in it. Because even just that heat starts to break down the molecular bonds in there. And so we have to make sure that we're getting it right. Now, as far as carbs, there's a difference between potato chips and potatoes, isn't there? One has nutrients and the other one has nothing, essentially. Right? So we have to pick out the right kind. So potatoes are very high carb, aren't they? And some would argue that it's a very low quality carbohydrate. But you also have to understand that there's a scale, right? A scale of what's good. Potatoes aren't going to kill you on their own. They're not going to give you heart disease on their own. But if all you eat is potatoes and they come from Chick-fil-A or McDonald's, probably going to be building some heart disease actively inside your body. So it's not an either or here, it's understanding what matters. And that's going to be the quality of what you're putting inside your body. The next thing has to do with fats. And this is the biggest thing. Like when you look at nutrition, consuming fish twice per week can result in a 36% reduction in coronary heart disease. And that's just fish. Like that's fish generally. That's not even the best kind of fish. That's not even omega-3 rich fish. Just fish in general, seafood in general, has way more rich in omega-3 fatty acids than anything else. And now omega-3 fatty acids, what are they other than heart superfoods? They're essential fatty acids, meaning that your body cannot produce them on their own, but it needs it. In fact, your central nervous system, the thing that's so important in controlling all this stuff, it is over 60% fat. Some of us, it's as much as 70% fat. And it needs to be made up of mostly these omega-3 fatty acids. Now, omega-6 fatty acids are also necessary and also essential, but they're way more abundant in the American diet. And when the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids gets way out of proportion, it should be 2 to 1 to 1 to 1. The average American, 17 to 1. The average corn-fed cow, the beef that's inside, 17 to 1. Wonder why the average American has a 17 to 1 fatty acid ratio? It's what we're putting inside of our bodies. Absolutely. So omega-3 fatty acids, where do they come from? Some, mostly seafood, grass-fed cows, pasture-raised eggs. Nuts are actually more going to be omega-6s. Seeds, omega-3s. Yeah, a lot of things that we don't get a lot of in our lives, or we've been told aren't good for us. And if you categorically say one food type is bad for you, like you just vilify carbs or vilify fats, you're going to be missing out on essential micronutrients. And so we can't vilify everything. Now, if you get a fish that's raised on a farm being fed corn pellets, is that going to be a healthy fish or is it going to be a sick fish? Sick fish, and so is it going to make a healthy you or a sick you? Health is simple, right? Eat something that's healthy, you become healthy. Eat something that's sick, you become sick. And so when you have that ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, you don't get inflamed. When you have the 17 to 1 or 30 to 1, you become inflamed. And so we need those omega-3s in there. So what else do we need? A lot of stuff. CoQ10. When you're talking about cardiovascular wellness, this is something that probably all of us should be taking. CoQ10, it's an antioxidant that your heart needs in order to stay healthy. What are antioxidants, therefore? They bind to free radicals. What do free radicals do? They create inflammation and cancer. What are people concerned about with X-ray? Free radicals. And so if you eat vegetables, you'll actually flush out those free radicals. CoQ10, guess where that's abundant in? Some vegetables, but mostly fish. Things that have a lot of omega-3s also tend to have a lot of CoQ10 in them. Imagine that.
Statins help reduce your CoQ10 level.
Help, yes. Yeah, they block CoQ10 production in your liver. So your liver's job is to produce cholesterol. Got a lot of jobs. It produces cholesterol and it produces CoQ10. You can actually make your own CoQ10, but if you take a statin medication, it blocks it. It blocks the production. And so you need that CoQ10. And the lipoic acid, that's an omega-3 fatty acid, and it absorbs better together. That's why we put it together. A lot of doctors have gotten wise to statins actually block the production of CoQ10, so they prescribe CoQ10, but they don't prescribe it with an omega-3 or with the lipoic acid in there. And so then it doesn't absorb as well. And so then what are you doing? You're wasting your money on an expensive supplement. So I don't want you guys wasting money on stuff. So we put that type of thing together. Now, curcumin, who knows what curcumin is? Yeah, and it's the active ingredient in turmeric that is one of the most potent anti-inflammatories out there. It's actually more potent than most over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medications. But it does need a certain environment in order to absorb. And we used to think that black pepper was a really good thing at that, but we found out that black pepper extract can actually create some leaky gut symptoms. So we've revised the formula, which we're always going to do. Anytime we find something that needs to change. And the other things we knew that curcumin absorbed well with was quercetin and resveratrol. Who's heard of quercetin? Yeah, vitamin Q. This actually gained some notoriety over the last 2 years because we started to realize that vitamin C, vitamin D3, and most of the immune boosting supplements or vitamins worked better with quercetin there. And that it actually on its own helped to improve the function of the nerve or of the immune system. And then resveratrol has been famous probably for the last 20 years for helping with brain function. But it's also an antioxidant that helps lower inflammation as well. And so this is a very potent anti-inflammatory. So that's our cardiovascular wellness bundle. This, if you have high cholesterol, this is what I would take if I was taking it. Or if I had high cholesterol and I was trying to work on my lifestyle to get there, but my cholesterol stayed high. So red yeast rice plus CoQ10, because red yeast rice has a very similar mechanism to a statin medication in that it can block some of the CoQ10 production. So it helps to replace that, but it does actually help your body naturally lower cholesterol without blocking the cholesterol production in the liver. Curcumin, again, for inflammation, but then plant sterols. And so what plant sterols are, cholesterol, instead of from an animal source and having that choline chain attached to the sterol chain, it's a plant source that when your body recognizes it's inside, won't produce as much cholesterol. It'll use the plant sterol in its place to build things like hormones. And so as your body does that, it will naturally lower the cholesterol levels as well. So pretty fantastic. This is the sterols in plants are one of the main reasons why we see vegans and vegetarians start getting lower cholesterol levels in their bodies. Not that I'm saying you have to go vegetarian or vegan. You can do this healthy with red meat and white meat and all that. You just have to get good sources of that. Then the next one is for people that have high blood pressure. We talked about elasticity of blood vessels, right? One of the biggest things that you can do to create elasticity in blood vessels is to give yourself nitric oxide. A lot of people are familiar with nitric oxide because of the little blue pill, men especially, right? So actually, this is a sell the problem, sell the cure type of situation. If you're taking a statin medication, you actually have some issues. And so they sell the little blue pill for nitric oxide to reduce those issues. Yeah, the problem and the solution, all with two different medications. All right, so this is actually the things that your body uses to create nitric oxide naturally. And then these are a couple of herbs and nutrients that combine together to help lower the blood pressure naturally. And guess where some of those nutrients are coming from? Seafood. So if you don't like fish, there are ways to get around that, but you may need to supplement a little bit. Now, some that weren't mentioned in these supplements, vitamin D3, if your blood serum levels of vitamin D3 are between 60 and 100, you reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by over 50%. That's vitamin D3. And then omega-3 fatty acids, you can also supplement with just those by themselves. And that we've seen has a blood pressure lowering effect just by itself. Because most people are way out of whack with that inflammation with the omega-6s and omega-3s. So those are the supplements I recommend depending on what you're looking for. So the next supplement I recommend, I've bottled up nicely for you guys so that you would be more congruent in taking this. And that is, computer locked up. Yeah, the machine's supposed to be helpful. See in the backside. Exercise, right? This is one everyone's going to line up to buy, right? No, literally, if you could bottle up exercise and put it in a pill, it would outsell every medication on the market, every supplement on the market, because it's so effective at lowering blood pressure, lowering cholesterol, lowering inflammation, increasing your wellness sensations, your anxiety goes away, your depression goes away. Like, you list a problem, exercise fixes it. Maybe not completely, right? Because there's 4 other essentials. Maybe you don't want to do running, but exercise. Yeah, get in the pool, swim around a little bit. You know, do some yoga, do some Tai Chi. Absolutely. There are ways to get around the limitations that we've developed because of inflammation or lifestyle habits or whatever. And so there's a starting point for this. So there's a right way to do exercise, and then there's a better way to do exercise. And there is a wrong way. Don't hurt yourself. Right? Be smart. Listen to your body. But just because something hurts doesn't mean you should stop. Having degenerative arthritis, right? This is 85% of all arthritis is degenerative arthritis. It makes you not want to do it because everything hurts. Problem is, the #1 tool that we have against degenerative arthritis, movements. She's been to a few classes. You have to move if you want to stop arthritis. And so if you're not running because your knee hurts, walk. If it still hurts, get in a pool. If it still hurts, do some Tai Chi, do some yoga, do something. Just keep it moving. Don't let it stop. And yes, it will inflame more afterwards, but that's a good inflammation. That's a healing inflammation. Inflammation at its root is there for healing. It's not always bad. When you twist an ankle, it swells up because your immune system is responding to it and actually bringing the nutrients that it needs to heal. And so if you see an increase in inflammation, don't just run to the anti-inflammatory right away. Let it inflame for a little bit. In fact, we see that, what I learned in school with how to treat like an ankle sprain or a turn, RICEs, rest, ice, compression, elevation, suspension, actually increases the amount of time it takes for that to heal. The only one of those that actually works in decreasing, rest. What's the pain of inflammation there for? And to stop. Right? Stop doing the thing that makes it hurt. And so we have to listen to that. So be smart. Talk to your doctor. I volunteer. Right? And we'll figure out a plan that works for you. Regular exercise could reduce cardiovascular disease risk by 48 to 57%. And that's not a chiropractic study. None of these are chiropractic studies. These are all like things that your medical doctor should know. Things that your best friend should know. If we just do it, right? Nike. Just do it. Get out there and do it. Even if it's a walk, even if it's jumping in the pool, even if it's throwing your kids around or mowing the yard by hand, like these things help. All right, there's supposed to be a picture on here. Not sure what's happening with my slides right now. But the next category is the mindset. And so the biggest thing that impacts heart disease with your mindset is the stress that you put yourselves under. And this is actually where I want to settle in for a minute, because a lot of you guys know I went to Dallas last weekend. And I got to learn some incredible information, neurology, from a world-renowned pediatrician. Why pediatrician? Why pediatrics? Well, that's when the brain forms. That's when the brain develops. That's when the brain matures. And so it was just incredible to sit in front of this guy and learn. Like he did a couple of case studies for difficult cases that some of the best chiropractors in the world, not in this room, were bringing up to the stage and asking him about and asking him how to do it. And he said, look, here's the deal. As a society, as a whole, we've gotten brain development wrong. And it's creating stress. It's creating stress in our kids. And that stress is leading to all sorts of things. It's the reason why we see so much anxiety. It's the reason why we see so much ADHD, and it's also implicated in heart disease. But you look at the brain, and how this develops is you've got your hidden brain, your midbrain, and your forebrain. Your hindbrain develops first. When you pop out of your mama, that's what you got. And that brain is designed to keep you alive. And so what happens? You get hungry and you cry. You get poopy and you get tired and you cry. Yeah, and then you sleep, right? After you get fed and then you sleep. And so you get through this phase, and in about 3 months, you start developing motion. You start being able to control motion. And as you have motion, you start to have experiences. And these experiences actually allow you to start building the midbrain by creating emotional responses to those experiences. And those emotional responses help you to develop healthy coping mechanisms. But that midbrain, right? So from here to here, this needs in men, right? So I'm talking to myself, about 30 years to mature. Yeah, maybe 35 in some of us. But then what do we do when they're 5, 6, 7, especially 7, 8, 9? We start getting them into elementary school and we want them to memorize facts, figures, start thinking logically. It's all forebrain stuff. That's where we spend the next 25 to 30 years. And we determine success or failure in this section of the brain. And so we haven't developed these healthy coping mechanisms here yet. And so what happens when we fail up here? Right back to survival mode. Fear, anxiety, somebody else needs to meet my needs for me. So how do we get out of that? Coffee. That's right. Coffee's the answer to everything. Absolutely. But yeah, so we're living here, right? We've got this stress going on. We got this stress that leads to the high blood pressure. And if we leave that high blood pressure there, that leads to the heart disease. So what do we do to get out of that? Well, we have to develop that midbrain, which means what? We have to have more experiences. And really, what's better than fixing this is preventing this. And so for those of us that have children or grandchildren, how do we deal with this? And he talked about it in our 2-year-old's favorite word. Who knows my 2-year-old's favorite word? No. Right? Because what does he hear the most? No. So he had this 2-year-old that was sitting in his office, and you've seen my desk. It's got 1 million papers on it, right? 2-year-old goes and grabs paper off the top. What's Dad say? No. It's an appropriate response by Dad, right? Don't touch doctor's papers. That's not okay. You mess up some stuff. Dr. Polevsky stops him. He says, I know you want to touch that paper, but I can't let you touch that paper. What do you do in that moment? What's the difference? Acknowledging of emotions that child desires and experience. I have some memories from being pretty small. I wanted to touch everything. Ever take a kid to a museum? The signs say don't touch, they want to touch. Because that's how they experience, right? Acknowledge that, but then establish the authority. Because children also need that authority, right? If you don't establish that authority, what do they turn into? Entitled brats, right? They think they deserve everything. And so you either create one or create the other. You can have both. You can allow for the thought that, yes, they may want that. And guess what? As a parent, if you say that in a situation where you're not the overall authority in the room, that gives the overall authority in the room an opportunity to be the good guy. And so, oh, you can't have this, but have you seen this? Right? And then they still get an experience. But then watch how the child copes differently. And then the other thing that we talked about was looking at just the hockey stick that's been created with these learning disorders. I know this isn't a learning disorder talk, but ADHD, autism, all this stuff. In the late 90s, 2 key things changed. 2 key things. Number 1, birth interventions. Doctors got busier, so C-section rates went up. Forceps use went up, vacuum extraction went up, even just the birth instructional videos. If you look in med school right now. They teach the doctors to push on the head and neck, pull on the neck and shoulders, and pull the shoulder out. And oftentimes you see them, especially C-section, holding the child by the head. I've seen these videos. It's scary looking. And then they hand the baby to mom and say, careful with the head and neck. Yeah, what did you just do? So that was the number one thing that we saw. The C-section rate in the United States right now is over 30% and climbing. It's recommended by the World Health Organization that be no higher than 10% because of the trauma that it creates to the baby. And you miss this whole probiotic flush, the good bacteria that you build up your immune system with by not going to the birth canal. So there's two things right there that affect mental health: the trauma of the birth and the bacteria that help to populate the gut and create good mental function. Second thing is we went from a vaccine schedule that had 7 by the age of 8 years old, 7 vaccines by the age of 8 years old, to 72. And so every single vaccine has been safety tested, and medical doctors and immunologists will argue till they're blue in the face that no one of those ingredients in there is at enough of a level that it will create any sort of toxicity reaction. But how many of them are being tested together? None. None of them are. None of the safety studies incorporate anything else. And their placebo is always the inert ingredients like the aluminum and the polysorbate 80 and the parabens and the things that you wouldn't put in your mouth. That's in the placebo. And then the vaccine is the placebo plus the bacteria or the protein or the combination that makes it this unique thing. And so we had those two things change, and now we've got a generation of kids who receives 72 different vaccines before the age of 7, and we're adding more every single year. And we're starting to see, like, I don't know about you, but I looked at the kids around me when I was a kid. I had no problem saying these kids look healthy, right? We were all running and jumping and playing. But now I look at our kids, and my kids are the exception. Like, no, really, like, it's normal to see kids taking medication now, right? It's normal to see obese kids in the kids' classroom. Did anybody here have more than one obese kid in their class growing up? Anybody have any in one classroom? I mean, yeah, I didn't have any in mine, and I didn't grow up in a farming community. St. Clair, Michigan, small town outside of Detroit. We had a horrific cancer rate, but that's a different story for a different day. But what changed? Birth traumas and the amount of vaccines our kids are giving. Those are the two things that changed dramatically. I mean, yes, generations changed the way that we interact with our kids, but those two things majorly. And so really what it comes down to is, how is that brain developing? Because your nervous system, it controls everything, right? Every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. And we can see this. When you have a traumatic birth process, you have a spine that's out of alignment. And it happened, like, all 3 of my kids had spinal misalignments at birth because of the birth process itself. But they also had a chiropractor at their birth. Well, and guess what? I'll do that for your kids too. I will go to births. I will adjust that. I'll adjust the pregnant mama. My wife got adjusted 3 times during each of the birth processes, at least.
What was the obstetrician go with that when you're sitting in there, standing in there giving him advice?
Oh, I don't give him advice in there. I let him do his job.
So wait, as soon as he's done, you start.
Yeah, we stay out of each other's way. Yeah, no, stay in your lane. I don't give advice. I tell, like, my wife told him what she wanted up front, and that's how it should be. You know, with birth, mom should know what she wants. She shouldn't be forced into anything. And that's the other thing that we've done is to moms is we've created this ultra stressful disease process called the birthing process. When for millennia, women were out in the fields, picking, hoeing, oh, got to pop the baby out. And then hopefully there was somebody around to help them get back to the house. But if not, bundle them up and let's carry them home. And now it's a disease process where you're getting the first ultrasound at 20 weeks. And then, oh my goodness, something's not quite perfect. So now we got to do this other intervention and we got to do this other intervention. And the whole 42 weeks, you're stressed out the whole time. And I said 42 because it's a 5-week window that centers around 40 weeks. But we also think that if the baby's not popped out by 40 weeks, disease process, there's something wrong. Yeah, and yeah, my babies were born at 39 and 5 days, and then 40 in 1 day, and 40 in 2 days. But that's the exception. You know, I have a lot of friends that had them at 42 plus 3. And it's not abnormal. They had healthy babies. I mean, Zeke was ready to come out at, 40 plus 2, 10 pounds, 6 ounces. Dietrich was ready to come out at 39 minus 2 at 8 pounds, 4 ounces. So, a little bit different there. But guess what tells mom that the baby's ready? The nervous system. The nervous system, it communicates, and it communicates through that umbilical cord. And it goes back to the mom's brain, and the mom's brain starts producing Pitocin, which unlike, oxytocin, which unlike Pitocin, which squeezes across, actually squeezes down and actually helps to push the baby out. Pitocin is one of the reasons why there's so many C-sections. It's like, oh, the labor's not advancing. You're 40 weeks. You've been laboring for 20 hours. Yep, start the pit. And then it ends up in a C-section because you started that, or you rupture the membranes, or any number of things. And so we don't want to do that. But here's the deal. Just with heart health alone, chiropractic, right? We're tapping into the nervous system by removing interference from the spinal level by adjusting C1. This is from an MD. They measured that blood pressure was lowered by 17 points just by adjusting the top bone in the neck. 17/10 to be specific. We see an improvement in lung function, which also improves cardiovascular function. Improves automatic function. So like the things that you do without thinking about it. All right. Increases heart rate variability. Anybody hear about this? So this is what your cardiologist should be measuring to measure how healthy your heart is. And so what it is the ability of your heart rate to come up and come down and then zero out again. And for most of us, we just go get our blood pressure checked and we get our pulse checked and maybe get a blood test to see our cholesterol levels, 1970s test. Hasn't changed in 50 years now. Heart rate variability we've known about for about a decade. It's a neurological test that measures the function of the vagus nerve because the vagus nerve controls the ability of your heart rate to come up and down. That's why adjusting C1 affects blood pressure. It also lowers inflammation. We see a decrease in inflammation just by adjusting the spine. As appropriate, as necessary. Guess what? I want to see you guys for the rest of your life. I want to see you on my table every 2 weeks. And how many times do I want to adjust your spine? Whenever necessary, but as little as possible. All right? I would love to see you at that until one of us passes. For me, that's a win because that means that your nervous system is healing and functioning the way that God designed it to. And you have somebody that cares about you taking care of it. Now, if you move away, we'll help you find somebody else, right? Now, I'm not jealous. I don't mind if you go to another good doctor. But God forbid you end up at a bad doctor, right? So, what are our steps moving forward? Number one, what'd you write down today? What stuck out at you? I didn't tell you what to write down. You guys took notes on your own. Some of you started just writing down everything I said. Okay, what's the big thing that jumped out? But what's the thing that you know based off of what I said you need to do? Some of us, we don't like fish. It's going to be omega-3. Some of us, that vitamin D stat I said, it just popped out at you. Some of you are like, plant sterols. That sounds weird. I guess I should eat some veggies. Some of you are like, I hate veggies. Give me a capsule, right? And so it's different for everybody. And some of you might need some coaching with that. So I'm here for you. Send me a text. I'll hang out by the supplements after we're done here for just a minute. The second step, probably the most important step, is to keep learning. I had several patients this week tell me, didn't I come to this last year? Yeah, and a lot of you did. I recognize a lot of these faces. And it's good. Because guess what? I don't remember what I said last year. I remember a lot of what I said last year, but it's not verbatim. And I have new stuff every time. And even if it is exactly the same stuff, how much of that did you implement last time? So keep learning. But guess what? Next month is not going to be on heart health. What do we need to learn next? Well, next month is about advanced supplementation, right? We're going to do a couple different things. I'm planning on implementing some essential oils, giving a select few of you an invitation to that class. Let me know if you want an invitation for that. That one we're going to keep kind of small. It's new for me. I've been using oils for a while, but just starting to get into it as a provider. A lot I'm learning about it, a lot that's really cool. Second thing is, what do you take beyond the daily essentials packet? What do you need to take beyond the daily essentials packet? Why would we consider taking something beyond the daily essentials packet? Why would you take anything other than the Max Living brand? Is it worth your money? Oftentimes, not so much. Sometimes, yes. I take some things that are not Max Living brand. And then 3, right? You got to pray about it, right? But also recognize that the thing that you're not doing, especially when it comes to these essentials, is the thing that will catch up to you. It will. If you're not taking care of your spine, it'll catch up to you. If you're not eating right, it'll catch up to you. If you're not exercising, it will catch up to you. So from that, what is the step that you need to take today to get started there? Not be perfect. Some of you it might be a walk. Some of you it might be, figuring out what this Tai Chi thing is that Dr. J keeps talking about. Some of you it might be, toxicity. Like, man, I don't really know what that is or where toxins are coming from. Maybe I should go back and watch the toxicity class and go back and watch some of my classes on YouTube from before. But wherever you're at, I'm here to support you. So we're going to break here. I'm going to take questions over there. So anybody who wants to go can. If you need help with supplements, I'll help you get them. But definitely watch the calendar. I am going to be closed next Monday afternoon. So anybody who's on the schedule for next Monday afternoon, definitely text me or jump on Sched to reschedule that. And then June 17th, the weekend of June 17th, that's my birthday weekend. My daughter's the flower girl and my wife's cousin's wedding. So I'm going to be shutting down the office for Friday through Tuesday because it's attached to a family reunion. And I'll be gone for that weekend. And then July 4th weekend, I'll be gone the 1st through the 5th as well. So that's it for the summer, though. Those are my summer travel plans. So make sure you're rearranging your schedule. I probably put you on the 4th just because I'm like that. So make sure we get that switched around and we'll get you taken care of. But definitely keep an eye on that schedule moving forward. Yeah, let's pray. Sound good? All right, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come here together and to talk about how to be healthy. Lord, I just pray that you would bless each and every one of us with fantastic health. We know that you know the plans that you have for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us a hope in the future, even when we're walking through the darkest valley. Lord, we trust in you to deliver us that peace. Lord, continue to draw us closer together and closer to yourself. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Hi. Personally?